Thank you again for joining me. My name is Dante Dimatteo with the Ask the Pharmacist group, and just wanted to take you a little more in depth on some of the meal prepping process that I've went through for a little while. So meal prepping, or finding a sustainable, balanced dietary pattern, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated or intimidating. So these are the 5 principles that I've stuck to for a little while that have made this a seemingly automatic process. And I think they can help you too. So number 1, 5 ingredient meals. 2, mix and match. 3, use all available kitchen tools. 4, know your numbers. And 5, make sure to spice things up. So 5 ingredients or less at each meal. This principle was adapted directly from Marcus Filly, who's a more than just a fitness guy that I've ascribed to for many years. And I feel like it's important to kind of continue to echo this message because the 5 ingredient only principle has stuck with me. I use it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, across the board. And this has helped me to keep my calories right where they need to be without all the extra calculation. So let's break the 5 ingredients down a little more specifically. So I got some examples here. Firstly, we want to have a good quality protein source. 2, we want to have a quality carbohydrate source. 3, we want to make sure we have a high quality, ideally unsaturated fat source. 4, we want to not just have vegetable sources, but we want to have a high volume of vegetables. And then number 5, we can still enjoy our favorite low calorie or no calorie condiments or sauces. So number 2, let's mix and match. The point is you want to make sure you buy enough of these 5 ingredients so that you give yourself more of a buffet or different options with each of your meals so you don't get too bored or sick of one particular item. Naturally, your variety and your palate will expand as confidence in the kitchen's built. So this principle encompasses the sort of no recipe mindset that many of us have trouble getting used to as we've sort of grown up with our grandmother, grandfather, or parents, recipe or cultural favorites. And so this is a big thing to kind of break away from. But ideally, the more that you sort of extract from this, you can then apply that back to your favorite family cultural meals, just with a little bit of a healthier spin, hopefully. Again, this will just give you more of a buffet when you go to assemble your lunches for the week or your breakfasts or your dinners. And so that's the goal, not to get sick of any one thing. We want to get rid of the old-fashioned chicken and broccoli only for meal prep. So that's what I've tried to at least stay away from myself. So the availability of all these different options, they'll also allow you to ensure that you build a more robust base of cooking skills. And this will allow you to maximize the enjoyment and also the prevention of boredom, and also help to reinforce adherence over the long term. So all of this ultimately does sound a bit analogous to a lot of the training principles that we've talked about. You want to have just enough variation, just like you want to have enough variation in your training to kind of keep you showing up every day, keep you interested, make sure you're not leaving out a muscle group or an activity or whatever. So not enough that it detracts from the main goal. And so if your main goal is the bench press, you want to do enough accessories that this can help you. Same thing in the kitchen. You don't want to have 18 vegetables so that you're throwing away 20 things every week, or that you bought 10 things that you didn't like. So you want to kind of be creative and, not start too broad. So instead of telling you exactly what you need to purchase or giving you a specific shopping list, I wanted to kind of break down what this week looked like for me and how it sort of played out. So another rule to kind of think of in this context is the 3+ rule. So we mentioned the 5 ingredients, the quality protein, fat, carb, vegetable, and condiment. And every time you shop, or every third time you shop, you can aim for 3 or more of those. So you make sure you have, and in this case, to kind of break it down a step further, 3+ vegetables and 3+ options of fruit, so that you're getting enough fiber and also hitting that 10+ serving a day of the vegetables and fruits combined. So that's sort of a caveat there. So again, the way that this sort of broke down for me this week, we had a lunch with turkey breast, white rice, a pre-cut vegetable mix, and not shown is the sriracha that I'll put on there at the end. And also there's some mixed nuts hidden in there as well. And then kind of keeping things fresh with the other meal, we have Brussels sprouts. We have bison this time. We repeated the white rice, which isn't the end of the world. And then there are mixed nuts as well. And so again, this is just a simple way to kind of keep things fresh. I didn't eat the same thing that I had for lunch that I had for dinner or vice versa. And another key point here, I mentioned the pre-cut vegetables. If you're new to this whole process, if you stick with, the pre-cut broccoli, pre-cut Brussels sprouts, potatoes, whatever, I mean, this is a massive chance for you to save some time. So instead of having to take the time to cut all of these before you develop the knife skills, you can just take these from bag to air fryer and literally just get these started in cooking while you can kind of start on your other things. And so that's been massively helpful for us. Next, number 3 was we want to make sure we use all available kitchen tools. And so obviously all of us will have different access and different interests and different kitchen setups. But when I say tools, when I get started, I make sure I got the oven going for roasting. I got the stove top going for, whether I'm cooking rice or I'm, pan frying the ground meat, whatever. And then finally, we got the air fryer, which has been an essential tool in this process. So not only do I have vegetables and such in the oven and potatoes in the oven, but I also have the air fryer kind of like mirroring what I have in the oven. So just so that you can get the volume going. And the volume is important, again, because you're ideally trying to scale this out over a week, or you're trying to scale this out for your 6-year-old's lunches or your husband or whatever. So volume is key, and you'll sort of get more comfortable in time with the volume that you do need. But the point is, have all those tools going to save you time and to uptick your output. Another kind of quick time-saving thing, 90-second rices and 90-second lentils and beans and such are another massive time saver. So even if you do have some carb sources in the oven with the potatoes or whatever, have 4 or 5 packets of rice ready, to save you, some additional time as well. Another key point with the air fryer, if you're just getting started, keep it simple, 400 degrees for 20 to 40 minutes. Maybe mix it up every 10 or so minutes just to make sure that the cooking part of it's being done evenly. And all you need is a little bit of salt and pepper, olive oil. And again, from bag to air fryer to starting, theoretically can take you under a minute or two, which is nice. Number 4, I don't want you to get too overwhelmed with this one, but this is know your numbers. This topic alone, we could probably have an hour or 2 video of how to, guide everybody to find their perfect kind of caloric breakdown or macronutrient breakdown. But here's a couple tips that'll get you started. And the first numbers to kind of focus on. Go on Amazon and get yourself a cheap food scale or kitchen scale for $10 to $20 and begin weighing in grams the different items you plan to prepare. So this isn't for you to necessarily start counting your calories, but it's for you to start to get a feel for, oh man, this is what 100 grams of meat looked like. Oh shoot, this is what 150 grams of cooked vegetables looked like versus 150 grams of uncooked. And so there's all these little nuances that I can't really tell you, but as you get started, and if you have a scale or you have some measuring cups, not that you need to be a scientist about this or, somebody in a lab, but it's enough to just educate you that the littlest differences, can go a long way. So the other way to think about numbers is just to make sure you're following the serving size labels, especially on something like rice. If 8 servings of rice calls for X number of grams, use the scale that you bought and make sure it's the exact amount of grams. Just a good sort of practice to be in. And then also use the scale that when you finish and you sort of see how I have it laid out, that each meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, can kind of have the same caloric amounts so that you're kind of making sure things are spread out evenly throughout the day. Also, if this is new to you and the thought of doing 20 meals a week is a bit overwhelming, then maybe you should start with 4 or you just start with 5. And so, for example, another way to think about knowing your numbers, if it's 4 meals, think about what each requirement will be at each meal. So, and just in terms of, buying the correct amount of meat, let's say, which is an easier place to start. So I know that at each meal, I'm going to need 4 to 8 ounces, all right, of uncooked meat. And so we multiply that by 4, we end up with 32 ounces. And you know the math, that equates to 2 pounds of meat. And so you need 2 pounds of meat to cover you for 4 meals. And so whether that's 4 lunches or 2 lunches and 2 dinners, again, we always emphasize protein. You at least know what you're doing with protein for that 4 meals that you're starting with. So start there. For carbs and mainly vegetables, I found it much easier to weigh the food after it's cooked, since the sheer volume shrinks down versus, a bag of broccoli that you just opened. Again, just make sure you're consistent one way or the other. Be consistent if you're tracking your calories and you're always measuring uncooked or you're always measuring cooked, because the caloric difference will eventually, come to play. Or if this amount of tracking or focus on numbers is a bit daunting, Precision Nutrition has a hand portion guide that I often suggest to people, and I think could be a great start for you. So for example, if we think about protein, we want to have 1 to 2 palms at each serving. For vegetables, we want to have 1 to 2 fists worth of the veggies. Carbs would be 1 to 2 cupped hands. And then fat would theoretically be 1 to 3, thumbs worth of either nuts or oils, whatever you decide. Remember, when you're doing this, you're dealing with estimates. So it'll definitely require some trial and error. So again, takes you back to the principles. Just make sure you're weighing yourself daily, taking averages of your weight on a weekly basis so that you can say, oh shoot, I was measuring, a palm's worth of chicken or bison each time, but I gained 3 pounds over the last 6 weeks. So you can at least, you got to start to build a picture of some of the data and track some of these things for yourself so you can always go back to see kind of where you stand. Number 5, spice things up. I'm not going to get real complicated with this one. I just basically picked 5 seasonings and I utilized different combinations of those 5 seasonings, and that includes salt and pepper. And you just use them on your different batch of veggies. You use them on your different batch of bison or turkey or regular ground meat, whatever. And this kind of keeps things fresh. And again, kind of takes you back to that mix and match principle where, you don't taste paprika every single time you have your rice meal. And then, you don't always taste the chili powder every time you have the potatoes, whatever. It's just kind of like these easy ways that you're not really having to think about, keeping it fresh. And then the bonus tip that we have for you, which I've mentioned this before, and I arguably think this is the most important, make the effort to involve your whole family. Be the example. This is ultimately more than an investment for just yourself. It's for the entire household. So their involvement will ultimately provide a layer of meaning and purpose to the entire endeavor or journey that will ensure that you can make this sustainable. This was a quote that I thought applied, quite nicely here. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So get the family involved, start cooking together, start spending some time with the food, and then the next thing you know, it'll be autonomous. Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, we would appreciate it very much if you would subscribe and hit the bell below. Thanks.